How's it going, my peeps? It is now time for the RAW results / highlights and review video. So I'll go over the results, some of the highlights in my opinion, and give you guys my thoughts, my review on the show. So it kicks off with a 20-man battle royal for Dean Ambrose United States Championship. So the show right away, the Shield make their entrance, and in the battle royal you had the Big Show, Cody, Goldust, Ryback, Sheamus, Heath Slater. I'm actually not sure if 3MB was, the rest of 3MB was in there. I don't remember. Actually, I don't think Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre were in there. But I do know Heath Slater was in there. Who else you had? You had Fandango. You had basically a bunch of superstars. And the last 5 ended up being Ryback, so Ryback and Curtis Axel, Sheamus, Ambrose, and Swagger. The first eliminated out of those 5 was Curtis Axel by Dean Ambrose. And then you had Ambrose and Ryback on the apron, both on the edge of, just getting eliminated. They're fighting on the apron, trading punches. Then Ryback decides to charge Ambrose on the apron, but Ambrose drop kicks Ryback's legs, so Ryback just falls off the apron. And then Swagger went after Ambrose, and Ambrose, basically what he did was he backflipped him, or backdropped him out of the ring. So then it was down to Ambrose and Sheamus. And right when Ambrose had, got done eliminating Swagger, he turns around, bam, brogue kick. And then Sheamus just grabs Ambrose, picks him up, and throws him over the top rope. And just like that, Sheamus wins the United States Championship, becomes a 2-time US champion. And then in the ring, you have the Shield, Reigns and Seth Rollins kind of, cheering up Ambrose. And then Triple H comes out and talks about how last night, the Shield Evolution, they had a war, and how the Shield was really lucky last night. But that tonight, after Ambrose, just lost the United States Championship, it seems like their luck is running out, especially because tonight, and then he announces that tonight they're going to be in 6-man tag team action against the Wyatt family. So, after that, you have an interview backstage with Sheamus, Renee Young interviewing Sheamus about just winning the US Championship. He says, since he's returned from injury, he's been spinning his wheels, but now that he won the title, Sheamus is back to glory. And then Renee asks him if he has any thoughts or anything he has to say to Ambrose, who had to, defend his title against 19 other superstars. And Sheamus says, "No hard feelings, fella." And then after that, we see Brie Bella and Bryan backstage. And Stephanie comes in the locker room, or, whatever room they're in. And she tells them, or tells Bryan, first off, she congratulates Bryan on retaining his championship, getting the win last night. But then she says, all he's done now is anger the Monster Kane, and now she's afraid for him. So she tells Bryan and Brie, or suggests that they stay in this locker room until Bryan's match tonight. And then Bryan just says, "Thanks for the tip," or "Thanks for the advice." And then so Stephanie leaves, and then when she closes the door, out of nowhere now, Kane's mask is on the door. And then following that was Cesaro versus Rob Van Dam before the match actually started, before Cesaro got introduced by Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman comes out and he says, "Hey, did you guys hear the news? My client, Brock Lesnar, conquered the streak." And the crowd boos. But anyways, he introduces Cesaro. And Cesaro and RVD have a match. And the match actually ends in disqualification for Cesaro when he hangs Rob Van Dam upside down on the turnbuckle, and Rob Van Dam's stuck there. And then Cesaro kicks Rob Van Dam. He keeps kicking him while RVD is upside down. Eventually, RVD, though, gets a kick in on Cesaro's head. That angers Cesaro, so Cesaro then gets out of the ring and starts punching RVD in the face bunch of times. Referee's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So once he reaches 5, he disqualifies Cesaro. And even then, Cesaro continues on punching RVD while he's hanging upside down. And then he even hits a running big boot on RVD while he's still upside down. So he gets disqualified, and eventually Paul Heyman tells Cesaro to stop, so he doesn't get suspended. And so they leave, and then the trainers and referee check on RVD. And then came time for a Bray Wyatt promo. Talks about last night's match, They show a replay of the kid singing that he's got the whole world in his hands, distracting Cena, from escaping the cage. And Bray Wyatt talks about all these things Cena says about him, and he says those things are true. It's true that Bray Wyatt is a monster. It's also true that he wants to see the world burn so that it can be reborn in Wyatt's way. And he says he's doing all of this, for each and every one of the fans, or every single one of the people, the kids, and all that. And then after that promo, it was time for Ryback versus Cody Rhodes. And before the match started, they showed a replay of the Battle Royal, or just the part where Goldust got eliminated by accident by Cody when Ryback shoved Cody into Goldust, which, allowed or made Goldust fall out of the ring and get eliminated. But anyways, as far as the one-on-one match goes, it was a pretty good match, actually. Towards the end, Cody was just flying everywhere, freaking springboard drop kick, disaster kick, this and that. In the end, he climbs up the top turnbuckle, I guess for a crossbody or something. But then Curtis Axel tries to take him down, but Goldust stops Curtis Axel, but Curtis Axel grabs Goldust and just shoves him onto the steel post, the same steel post that is right behind Cody, so Cody kind of loses his balance just a little bit, and Ryback gets up, and he catches him in the perfect shell shock position, and hits the shell shock, covers Cody, and Ryback beats Rhodes. And then after the match this time though, Cody didn't push Goldust or anything like that. And then after that, we see Bryan and Brie Bella backstage once again in the same room, and they're staying there, and then the lights go out, and so Brie Bella gets freaked out, and they leave the room, and then Stephanie catches up to them, and she's like, what happened? Didn't I tell you to stay in the room or whatever? And Bryan says, oh, don't act like you don't know what's going on, or what just happened. And then she says, she doesn't, and that she's gonna, bring their car up to, right to the arena, or right to the parking lot, or something like that, so it can be ready for them. And then afterwards, we have the Los Matadores and El Torito celebrating Cinco de Mayo and El Torito's victory, and they're throwing candy in the crowd. And then 3MB come out offering a truce, and El Torito offers candy to Hornswoggle. Hornswoggle grabs one of the candies, puts it in his mouth, and then he just spits it out and freaking throws all the candy in El Torito's hand away. And then El Torito starts punching Hornswoggle. Actually, Hornswoggle, I think, gives the first punch, and then El Torito fights back. And then Los Matadores take out Jinder and Drew out of the ring. Heath Slater doesn't see that, because he's busy looking at El Torito and Hornswoggle fighting. And then once he turns around, he sees that his partners aren't there, and Los Matadores are right behind him. So they take Heath Slater out of the ring, and then El Torito grabs Hornswoggle, actually puts a hat over Hornswoggle's head, and then he does an airplane spin with Hornswoggle, and then just pretty much hits him with his horns, kicking, or I guess spearing Hornswoggle out of the ring. And then we get Rusev versus Kofi Kingston, and I'd say Kofi Kingston, I don't know if I would say that. I was going to say Kofi Kingston probably got like the most offense against Rusev, but R-Truth got a good amount of offense in also last night on Extreme Rules. So, but basically Kofi Kingston got a lot of offense in. He hit even a top rope crossbody for a 2 count, a couple kicks, and in the end though, Rusev, he hits the side slam, and then follows that up with the accolade. Because I was calling it the Camel Clutch this entire time. I didn't know the name, but now I know the name. It's called the Accolade. So, yeah, he wins the match by making Kofi Kingston tap out. And then after that, we see Bryan and Brie Bella go to their car. Brie gets in first, and then Bryan checks around the car if Kane's there or anything. He should have checked the trunk, though, of the car. Because, that's where I'd assume Kane would be if, he would have went in the car and left. Because he didn't leave. Because he gets in the car, and then somebody taps on the window, and that freaks Brie Bella out, but it was Stephanie. And Stephanie basically tells Bryan that you know, she knows she said, you know, they could leave or whatever, but she, you know, since he has a match, if he leaves now and doesn't have the match, it's like a breach of contract, and because of that, she would, you know, strip him of the championship. So then Bryan and Brie leave the car, and then after that was the match. It was Del Rio versus Daniel Bryan, and Brie Bella was at ringside. The match ends when Del Rio goes for the cross arm breaker, but Daniel Bryan counters that into the yes lock, locks it in, and after a couple seconds, Del Rio taps out. After the match was over, Kane's pyros go off, his music hits, but he's not there. Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella run out the ring, and they go backstage. And then we see the cameras backstage. He's in the parking lot. He gets in the car. They try and start the car, and guess what? It doesn't work. So, you know, he gets out of the car and checks, you know, the hood of the car. He says there's a wire unplugged, so he plugs it back in, and then once he puts down the hood of the car, he sees Kane in the back seat, but Brie Bella doesn't see him. Brie Bella is like in the front seat, so she doesn't see Kane behind her. So he warns Brie, and then Brie turns around and sees Kane, and Kane's trying to grab her, and she's like, oh, and then Bryan opens up the door from the back door, and he takes Kane out of the car. And then Kane uppercuts him, and they fight, and then they fight on top of the car, but Bryan gets off the top of the car, and then Bryan gets back in the car. He starts the car, and right away he, you know, he freaking puts his foot on the gas, and Kane falls off the car. So then they stop the car, and for some reason they decide to get out of the car, or Bryan decides to get out of the car to go look at Kane, who's down now. He's down like straight up. Like, you know, he's gonna sit up. And he does. He sits up. So then Bryan gets back in the car, and Kane tries to chase them, or chase the car, but they just, you know, speed off. And then after that, we had a rematch for the SC Championship. It was Big E versus Bad News Barrett. And Barrett ended up winning the match when Big E was going for the big ending, and the referee was like right behind Big E. So Bad News Barrett rakes the eyes of Big E, and the referee doesn't see it, and then Barrett gets off the shoulders of Big E. When Big E turns around, bullhammer, cover, and Barrett wins the match. Oh, and also during the match, one of the highlights in the match, but he also did this last night, Big E hit that spear through the ropes to the outside onto Barrett. Afterwards, you had Zeb Coulter and Jack Swagger make their entrance, and Jack Swagger had a sign that said Zeb Coulter's the port list, and on the back of it was Sheamus, Paige, Santino, Emma, and Cesaro and Paul Heyman. And he talks about why they should all, you know, leave, or they get deported, and then Adam Rose's music hits, or actually not, before his music hits, like his, I guess his friends or his party crew, they come out, and then his music hits. And then when he makes his entrance, he actually gets on the apron and falls down on purpose so that his party crew can catch him, and then they go on the other side of the ring and put him back up on the apron. And then he gets in the ring, and he gets real close to Zeb Coulter. Zeb Coulter tells him not to touch him, and he tells Zeb Coulter to not be a lemon, be a rosebud, and then Coulter basically signals Swagger to attack Adam. So he does, or tries to, and Adam just kicks him and backchops him out of the ring. And then his party crew gets in the ring, and they all dance, and Zeb Coulter rolls out the ring. And that was it for that. And then it was time for the main event, The Shield versus the Wyatt family. And this match ended when Reigns was the legal man, Reigns and Bray Wyatt. Reigns goes for the Superman punch, he hits it, and then at that point, all members of the Shield are in the ring, and they're preparing to hit the triple powerbomb on Bray Wyatt. But then Evolution's music hits, they come out, they start walking down the ramp, and then at the same time, Eric and Luke Harper get back in the ring, but the Shield take care of them, and then Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins bounce off the ropes, hit suicide dives on both Randy and Batista. Triple H gets in the ring, but he also gets hit with a Superman punch. And then once Reigns turns around, Bray Wyatt is up. Bray Wyatt hits a running modified crossbody. That running crossbody he does, he hits that, and then right away follows it up with Sister Abigail, covers Reigns, and gets the victory. So the Shields, or the Wyatt family, I should say, beat the Shield once again. So now the Wyatt family had 3 victories over the Shield, while the Shield only has 1 over the Wyatt family. And after that, now Evolution started attacking the Shield, and you have in the inside or outside of the ring, I should say, Batista hits a spine. Batista's fighting with Ambrose. Inside the ring is Seth Rollins and also Reigns. And Triple H was going for a pedigree on Reigns, but Reigns backdropped Triple H. So he countered, the pedigree into a backdrop. Randy sees that, so right away he hits an RKO on Reigns. Triple H then picks up Reigns right away and hits a pedigree on him. Randy also hits a DDT from the top turnbuckle on Seth Rollins. And Batista on the outside, who's fighting with Ambrose, hits, I'd say, the gentlest of spinebusters on the steel steps. It didn't look as impactful as a normal spinebuster he would do. It looked more like, hey, Ambrose, let me just gently, deposit you or gently place you here on these steel steps so you can take a nap or something. It's like he picked them up and then, hey, let me just put you here on top of the steel steps. That's what it looked like. It didn't make any sound. Usually when he hits a Batista bomb or spinebuster on the steel steps, something like that, you hear the sound of steel steps. It's, the sound of somebody colliding with the steel steps. But this time, like I said, it was like, let me just gently put you on these steel steps. And then after that, Batista gets in the ring, and this is where the cool thing happens, where they signal for Batista to do something. At first, I thought it was just going to be a Batista bomb on Reigns or Ambrose or something. But actually, no. Triple H and Randy signal for Batista for the triple powerbomb. So they do the triple powerbomb, but instead of, Reigns being the one doing the powerbomb, it's Batista. And instead of Seth Rollins and Ambrose picking up, their opponent, it's Triple H and Randy picking up Reigns, putting him on Batista's shoulders. Batista and Triple H and Randy hit the triple powerbomb. And then they fist bump, to Evolution's music. And not fist pump, but they do the fist bump. So anyways, that ends the show with Evolution celebrating and the Shield being down and out. And then also Reigns, Reigns was bleeding from the mouth. So I don't know when that happened exactly, but for some reason, you could see there was blood in his mouth. Anyways, that ends the show, and for me, that was the highlight of the night when Evolution took the triple powerbomb from the Shield, or did the triple powerbomb to the Shield themselves, or Roman Reigns. And yeah, also a highlight in the match, I thought, was Seth Rollins. He usually goes for his senton, running senton or flipping senton from the inside to the outside. He did that too. He always does that, or has been doing that a lot recently. But this time, when he did it on both Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, and he actually landed on his feet instead of, just falling down. But anyways, as far as my thoughts, my review on tonight's show, to be honest, I didn't really enjoy tonight's Raw. None of the matches I really enjoyed. I wasn't really interested in any of the matches. Also, the Daniel Bryan and Kane segments, you knew, Kane was going to show up, but it was like really, I don't know if cheesy is the word, but it was, I don't know, it was like, especially Brie Bella. Brie Bella's acting in it was, it was bad, man. It was some bad acting. It seemed like a low budget movie or something. A low budget scary movie. It wasn't scary, but it just, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of those segments. And like I said, you knew Kane was gonna appear at some point. And I don't like it when like, for example, when they left, when they got in the car and left. And then, Kane was, on top of the car and he falls down. Hey, let's stop the car and let me get out of the car and go look at Kane, even though I know he's gonna sit up. Come on. Anyways, what else? The Wyatt family versus the Shield match. It definitely wasn't as good, at least in my opinion, as all their other matches. It seemed more to me like a setup for Evolution to return. Like the entire time I was thinking at some point, Evolution will probably come out and interfere in the matchup or something like that. And the crowd was pretty disappointing too. It wasn't a loud crowd at all. I'd say the highlights for me on the show tonight were You know, like I said, Evolution delivering the triple powerbomb. I thought that was pretty cool. And the title change, the US title change, just because I felt it came out of nowhere. It was a surprise. I was expecting Ambrose to retain. I was thinking maybe that like the final two, because Big Show was, you know, dominating in the match. So I was expecting, like, in the very beginning, or not the very beginning, but when I saw Big Show was really, you know, eliminating a bunch of superstars, and on commentary they were really pointing that out, I was thinking maybe in the end it would be Big Show versus Ambrose, and Ambrose maybe, you know, finds a way to eliminate the Big Show. But that didn't happen, and when it was down to 5 superstars, I actually thought Swagger had a chance. For some reason, I was envisioning maybe Swagger wins the US title. Because a couple months ago, when it looked like the Real Americans were going to split up, and, you know, they eventually did. They did at Mania. I was thinking about maybe Swagger versus Cesaro for the US title. So for some reason, that idea was still in my mind, you know, watching this match. Even though I'm pretty sure the Swagger-Cesaro feud is over. But, yeah, you know, I'm interested in seeing now with Sheamus as US champion, and, you know, there's these rumors about Sheamus turning heel. I'm curious to see where this title reign goes, and how, if Sheamus turns heel. So anyways, that's pretty much it. As far as a rating, I would give tonight's Raw a 5.5 to 6 on 10. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you can click that like button. I'd really appreciate it, and I'm out. See you guys.